damning report warns that HS2 is badly off course. What again? I asked myself, and just before I came on air, I spoke to the chair of the Public Accounts Committee, Labour MP for Hackney South and Shoreditch, Meg Hillier, and asked her to explain what this report says.
Well, we've been looking at this for some time, and this particular report was looking at the latest progress on HS2. But what we were very disturbed about is that when we had our session, we by then knew that when we'd had the department in before, they had known there were major cost overruns on HS2 and had not told us, which is a very significant issue. And I think we think it undermines confidence if we don't have complete honesty and transparency from government about what is a complicated project, and projects like this do often, overrun, but we need to know if it's happening and we need to know why, and then we can interrogate it on behalf of the taxpayer.
Yeah, I mean, we started off with estimates of about 40 billion, and then it became 60 billion, and now we're told it's 100 billion. I mean, are you telling me that this is effectively out of control?
Well, certainly, we know that with these big projects, it's very foolish, actually, to set a very firm figure for a project that's going to be so long-running and over such, in this case, a very geographically spread one over time. And that was one of the things at the beginning, I think, that it's been going on for a decade. It's had a lot of political delays along the way. But we were to be very disturbed to find that everybody knew there was a big problem with overrun. We could have guessed that, but when we asked the direct questions, we were told it was okay, it was going to be delivered okay, and we know it's not. I've challenged the minister since then in the Transport Select Committee, which I was invited to attend, partly for this reason, to make sure that from now onwards, taxpayers, Parliament will know exactly what's going on, and every 6 months they will have to report to us on the costs and the progress on this project. Because if it's, a lot of money's been spent, 7 billion has been spent so far, Nigel, on this project. That's as of March last year, they're the latest figures that we've got finalised. It could, as you say, cost up to 100 million, but the National Audit Office itself said it couldn't pin down those figures, couldn't be sure that would be the final figure one way or another. So we need real openness about this, and we need to have openness about what the benefits are expected to be. And at the moment, it's been floundering. I think until that decision by the government to go ahead, it was not even a decision to go ahead. Now it's got the decision to go ahead, and it's a lot of money being spent. We need to be clear what we're getting for that, particularly in what will be hopefully a post-COVID-19 world.
Yes, and one of which we've all been used to video conferencing and Zoom calls, and actually where sort of travelling long distances for meetings may become a little bit less popular than it was. I've noticed in the last week that kind of party politics is back. Sir Keir Starmer, of course, the new Labour leader, who many independent thinkers say has made a pretty good start in the House of Commons. Is it likely that opposition to HS2 becomes a major Labour Party issue?
No, I think, actually, I chair, of course, a cross-party committee, and there are different views on the committee, yet we come up with agreed reports because we're looking, in our case, we're looking at the numbers. I think when you've spent £7 billion on a project and, Labour is not in government, so the current position of the government is that it wants to go ahead with it. So just practically, that means that there's potentially 4 more years to go further with this project. There will then be a decision, if Labour were to be elected, about what it would do. And I think there is always a challenge for any new government about whether it stops or reverses previous government policies or tries to implement its own future policies. And of course, one of the issues around COVID and HS2 and different views, I know from backbench Conservative MPs as well, who I've spoken to, is that this could be seen as a big economic stimulus because it could create a lot of jobs after lockdown. On the other hand, it's a lot of money to spend on it when we've been spending an awful lot, eye-watering sums of money on job retention and all of the really important measures to keep the economy afloat during lockdown and restrictions. So there is an argument both ways. And as of now, the government's position is to still continue. But whether that will be the case or not, I'm not the person to ask, Nigel, because I'm not a Conservative MP. But that will be one of the considerations that I must be at play inside Whitehall.
Well, that was Meg Hillier, MP, talking about HS2. And joining me now is the Labour peer, Deputy Chairman of Boris's review into the scheme, Lord Berkeley. Lord Berkeley, good morning. Welcome to LBC.
Good morning, Nigel.
Do we have to continue with HS2?
Well, we don't have to. It was a government decision. And I think the PAC report, which Meg Hillier has just mentioned, is a really good delve into the rather murky past that this project has had. We don't need to go on because In fact, I believe the money would be much better spent on improving the railways in the Midlands and the North, which are terrible at the moment.
Yes.
And trying to bring them up to the standard that we have around London, for a start, you know.
Well, no, I absolutely do take that point of view very, very strongly. But the argument against stopping this would be that we've spent £7 billion already.
Well, yes, we spent £7 billion already, but then are we in a fit state to spend 106 or even 200 billion, whatever the outturn cost will be, on one project which is basically designed to get to London more quickly from the regions?
But the counter-argument that was put, of course, and by people in your own party, particularly in Manchester, where mayors have argued for years, that somehow HS2 would regenerate the north.
Well, they say that HS2 will encourage lots of building developments around the centres, but I think they're also saying we need investment in the railways in our regions to get people into and out of the cities and to provide regeneration without everybody going by car, which is what many of them do at the moment because the services are so awful. I do think it's important that the investment in the regions goes ahead. I think it's appalling if you're going to take 20 years to get to Leeds more quickly from London, but the services into Leeds and Manchester and Sheffield are at the moment could be improved much more quickly.
Now, if the government took your advice and scrapped HS2 but made those kind of services in the Midlands and North a priority, they would actually be delivering, would they not, to the electorate that gave them that majority back in December?
Not only would they be doing that, you're absolutely right, but they'd be doing it much more quickly. And there are projects which could be started this year, what they call shovel-ready. In other words, people starting work on electrification, on new bridges, new track, which is very much more quickly than actually HS2 would do.
Interesting. So, Lord Berkeley, you are putting this issue above party politics, really, aren't you?
Well, of course I am. I mean, I've been working on the railways much of my life. I'm a civil engineer, and I want what's best for the customers. And for me, the customers are in the regions, as Boris Johnson has said many, many times, and they deserve a very much better rail service, which could be delivered very quickly. But the government has got to decide to do it and get on with it, because it's a challenge, but it could easily be done.
Very interesting indeed. Thank you so much indeed. That was Lord Berkeley, I thought, talking a huge amount of common sense, even though he's a Labour peer. If Boris took that advice, in many ways, the red wall may well hold at the next election.